Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. So this week, Samsung announced its very first 8K TV and Ubuntu improved security. So let's go ahead and start with the recent announcement that Samsung is going to be releasing its very first 8K TV here in the United States around October of 2018. Now, the whole idea of an 8K TV sounds absolutely crazy, especially when most people still don't have 4K TVs, and at the same time, there's pretty much not any 8K content out there, at least for the masses. And so some significant features of this 8K television, besides the insane amount of pixels that it's going to be able to show, is first and foremost, it will allow upscaling of current content up to 8K. So you have 4K, it'll do upscaling up to 8K. Very much like a lot of what the 4K does right now for 1080p content. Secondly, the brightness level on this is going to be insane. It's going to be able to go up to 4,000 nits of brightness, which is really high. And I think that is the highest right now that a lot of even filmmakers use. They go up to 4,000 nits. And then another thing it'll support is HDR10 Plus. And so this is the brand new version of HDR. And so it's going to be able to get a really high level of color and dynamic range. And so those are the biggest things that's going to come out of this television. And as I stated a little bit earlier, it is going to be 85 inches. So definitely not a TV that you could have in a small space. It's going to be more of an all-encompassing experience for people who like that. And the thing is, this 8K TV is not the very first 8K TV that's been released. That actually goes to Sharp, which released a 7-inch TV in late 2017 in China and was also released in Europe. And so all of this 8K goodness is definitely not going to come cheap. So even though Samsung did not announce prices yet for this new QLED TV, estimates are going to be around $14,000 to $15,000. Now, even though that sounds like a lot, it really isn't if you compare it to when HD TVs first came out. I remember when Pioneer announced their plasma TVs, there was like a 32-inch, or maybe it's actually 42-inch up to a 55-inch, and pricing for that was like $30,000 to $50,000. And so $15,000 isn't that much, considering you're getting 85 inches of 8K goodness. Now, in terms of the real-world use of this, I don't really see the benefit of this, especially for the mass consumers, because obviously, as I stated earlier, most people don't even have a 4K TV. And 4K content right now is not as mainstream as 1080p is. You know, 1080p is still the dominant resolution for most of the content that we have out there. Now, I think for people who are definitely early adopters and people who are into this stuff, this makes absolute sense. And it's really more of a testing bed because eventually everybody's going to go to 8K or higher. And so it will be interesting to see how this performs in the real world. And a lot of people have already stated before that our eyes cannot tell the difference technically from 1080p to 4K and then from 4K to 8K. But I would argue against that because whenever I'm producing 4K content, I could see the difference. Okay, so there is a difference, especially if you have a much bigger screen. You're able to see the pixels a lot more cleanly. And so if you have a 4K image blown up to 85 inches, you're going to be able to see those pixels, you know, even though you have to get close. Whereas if you have an 8K resolution, obviously you can have even better details and less pixelization. And so that is the Samsung Q900 8K TV. Yeah, I have never seen a resolution that high, even on YouTube. Even if you watch content creators talking about producing 8K content, you obviously cannot see it without an 8K set. So it'll be very interesting to see this. And hopefully they will have this display model maybe somewhere here in the United States, like at the Best Buy or something, or maybe a specialty shop. I just really want to experience that for myself. So on the second bit of news, let's go ahead and talk about Ubuntu upgrading their security. Now, this is something that Mark Shuttleworth, who is the founder of Canonical, which is the parent company of Ubuntu, they've been consistently improving their security. And the biggest thing that they've done throughout the years, I think since 2014, is their whole snap packages, you know, where it's basically all your applications are containerized. And so there are a lot of benefits by doing that. And the biggest advantage is security. And so if you've been reading up on the news, there was this whole incident a little while back where some apps that were available through the Ubuntu repositories, I think they actually had an app that was cryptojacking. Basically, the app would actually use your computer to mine cryptocurrency without your knowledge. And this is something that has been getting more and more popular on every single platform on operating systems, not only just Linux, but for it to happen in the whole Linux ecosystem where most people have this sense of better security versus something like a Windows or Apple Mac, it's still definitely possible for security threats to get into our systems, okay? And so that was a huge move. And Mark Shuttleworth was stating that, you know, with these snaps, not only are they able to contain the apps a lot better, they control it better because it's in its own container, but if they were to discover an app like that was cryptojacking, they could revert those changes even if they've been installed on another computer. And so I'm not sure how that works. That gets into some whole other things of how much control that they actually have if they could revert changes on apps that you've already installed on your computer. And so I'm not really sure because I have not dealt a lot with snaps. So that's one huge thing. And then another thing is within their whole app store, you know, the repositories, Ubuntu has done things that are very similar to what most people are used to with Apple's iOS or with Android, where they have a security measure where they'll scan for malicious apps. Okay, and so the whole idea of that, it's been around for a long time, and in my opinion, Linux pioneered this whole app thing with the whole repositories way before Android and iOS has. But Android and iOS has a lot more larger exposure, and so security for them is really, really important. And so it's really great that Mark Shuttleworth with Canonical, his company, is actually taking this approach on their Ubuntu operating system. And obviously, this will all trickle down to other distros that are based upon Ubuntu as well. And then the second thing is this whole idea of live kernel updates. You know, now this is nothing new. You know, a lot of people do have rolling releases, but the whole idea of live updating your kernel is something that is pretty much normal for like production systems. So if you've ever worked in a production environment, you definitely do not want downtime. So having your kernel being updatable live without shutting down your system is hugely important. And so now it is available for pretty much anybody who has Ubuntu installed, which is absolutely great. Now this came into play whenever we had the whole Spectre and Meltdown issues, and now obviously those are more sophisticated, so you're probably still going to have to reboot for most people. But for the majority of kernel changes, these live kernel updates will definitely be a benefit, especially for those like myself who do not like to restart their computer. And so overall, Ubuntu, Mark Shuttleworth, I really think that I got to praise them for actually taking a very proactive approach to security, because as our world becomes more interconnected, we have more of our personal things online, it's even more important that whatever system we use is as secure as possible. And definitely there is a business component to why Mark Shuttleworth is doing this, because Ubuntu being an open source operating system, there's so many complexities there. And so if Ubuntu is able to manage it this well, then that means they could do it well for other companies. And so there's definitely a business reason for Mark Shuttleworth to focus on security as well. And so those are my thoughts on Ubuntu security and also the Samsung 8K TV. If you had any thoughts in this, be sure to leave in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, share, like, and subscribe. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Gold Content Creators Group, where you'll get access to 30 videos plus additional content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Gold Content Creators Group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.